Welcome to the Lend Academy podcast, episode number 280. This is your host, Peter Renton, founder of Lend Academy and co-founder of Lend at Fintech. Today's episode is sponsored by Lend at Fintech USA, the world's largest fintech event dedicated to lending and digital banking. Lender's flagship event is happening online this year on April 27 to 29, with the possibility of an exclusive VIP in-person component. The verdict is in on Lender's 2020 event that was held online, with many people saying it was the best virtual event they had ever attended. Lend is setting the bar even higher in 2021. So join the fintech community at Lend at Fintech USA, where you will meet the people who matter, learn from the experts, and get business done. Sign up today at lendit.com/USA. Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the first podcast of 2021. We have a number of fantastic guests planned this year. And first off the rank, we have Thea Mason. She is the head of consumer deposits, digital payments, and student lending at PenFed Credit Union. Now, I wanted to get Thea on the show because I think some of the things that PenFed are doing are really interesting. They're one of the largest credit unions in the country now, but they've got a pretty small branch footprint and very much focused on digital initiatives, digitally serving their membership base. So we talk about that in some depth. We talk about the different verticals that Thea is responsible for. We talk about partnering with fintechs and what they're looking for there. We also talk about the pandemic and some of the changes they've implemented there and the increase in fraud and how they're combating that. And we talk about what's going to be coming down the pipe this year. It was a fascinating interview. Hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast, Thea.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Great to be here.
Okay, my pleasure. Let's just get this started. You've had an interesting career working in the traditional banking sector as well as credit unions. So why don't you just give us some of the highlights of your career to date?
Oh, okay. Well, I got my start in banking at Capital One, and I worked with some of the lending businesses there, like the auto finance business at Capital One. And then I moved over to work with the running strategy and marketing with the original group at Capital One that stood up the direct bank, which was at that time only the second direct bank in the U.S. Following ING Direct,
Right.
which was the first. And I've done other types of roles in financial services. And now most recently, I've been at PenFed Credit Union for almost 5 years now, and I lead up the deposits business for PenFed, as well as a student loan refi business. And lastly, recently took on managing what I call digital payments, which is our ACH wires and bill pay teams.
Right. Okay, interesting. So maybe just tell us a little bit about PenFed. I mean, it stands for Pentagon Federal Credit Union, I believe. So, what's its mission and how are you sort of serving your members?
Sure. Well, basically, I would say PenFed's mission is to empower the members of our community to achieve their financial well-being. So that's really where the heart of PenFed is, and we're really focused on our membership because like a credit union, as all credit unions, we are owned by our members. We don't have shareholders. And so that's kind of the orientation of PenFed. And we are in many different consumer lending spaces. We have a mortgage business, home equity, auto finance, credit card, and personal lending business, as well as a deposits business where we offer savings, checking, and CD accounts.
And I was reading that PenFed is really open to anybody today, right? You don't have to be have a military background or anything. Is that tell us a little bit about that? How you who is your target audience, I guess?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So PenFed has. You're absolutely right. We were originally called Pentagon Federal Credit Union, and our core membership for many years was the military or retired military in the U.S. Several years ago, we merged with another credit union, and they had what's called an open charter. And as part of that merger, we ended up taking over that open charter, which really enables us to offer membership to anybody. You do not have to be part of like a select group of people, where most credit unions are really built around like one or two types of organizations or groups that you have to be a part of in order to join a credit union. We're really open to anybody who wants to become a member. And I think we are still continuing our focus on military and former military, but now are really able to open up to a broader group of members.
Right. Okay. So then maybe, we're recording this just before Christmas. It's going to be out in the new year, but I'd love to kind of, as we're winding down the year here, just get a bit of a sense of how this year has been, for PenFed and for the credit union space in general.
Well, I think we really have been impacted much the way many financial services institutions are when the pandemic hit. I think credit unions and PenFed being one of them were impacted similar to banks. We all had to make a lot of pivots very quickly to make sure that we were providing our members access to services that are very, very important, financial services, as best we could. So we really were very fortunate because we already have a pretty solid infrastructure for self-service, and we have an online banking capability as well as mobile banking. And that really helped support our membership when, they couldn't move about freely and go visit our branches. One of the unique things about PenFed is that we are a nationwide organization. So we do have a little over 50 branches spread across the country, but as a national organization, it's relatively a thin branch network. Mm-hmm. And so we've always been at the forefront of having that technical capability for our members to access us through self-service. And we also have a number of call centers throughout the country where members can call in and get financial support as well. And, we were very fortunate that we were able to really pivot all of those employees to move from the service centers they worked in, continue to maintain the security that we really is essential in financial services, but have them work from home.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so then you mentioned a few of the different categories that you're responsible for. It's interesting when you go to your website, I see you're leading off with online savings. That's in bright red on your homepage here.
I think that's just today.
Oh, it is? Okay.
I literally think that just happened today. Yes.
Okay, well, it's there in bright red, talking about the 0.6 annual percentage yield, digital access. So what, when you're like of the different areas, I mean, what's the main focus? Is it deposits like a really strong focus for you right now, given this bright red box on your homepage?
That box switches products all the time.
Right. Okay.
So so I wouldn't say there's one product that PenFed focuses on. We really are focused on meeting all our members' financial services needs. So I think, I guess, luck of the draw for me, I run deposits business every once in a while. The product that I manage gets featured on the website for a few days, and then it'll disappear. And, come next week, it'll be a credit cards. We have a lot of very wonderful credit card offers, very generous cashback card. We have very competitive rates really across all our lending products. Auto finance, personal lending, and as well as student loan refinancing. So, in addition to our very meaningfully sized mortgage business and home equity business. So we all, as product owners, hope to have our products featured different periodically on the
right.
homepage to attract more interest.
Yep. Okay. And I also saw, when I was doing some research for this interview, you've got sort of like the PenFed, just the personal loan product was featured as best product for loans under $20,000. So I thought that was interesting. And Matt, is that part of your portfolio as well, the personal loans?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
That I don't have that, but we've got a couple of people like myself that are kind of product leaders, and there's another individual at PenFed that runs that particular product set.
Right. So maybe we can just talk about, I want to talk about the products that you're responsible for. I mean, what are some of the things that, it sounds like PenFed were well positioned, probably better than most credit unions to really take advantage of the fact that people were working from home. People were not, people were doing lots of, business online as far as banking goes. So did you were there certain projects this year that you fast tracked, or what digital initiatives did you kind of roll out this year that maybe you would, you might not have if but for the fact that we're in a pandemic?
That's a great question. So, Peter, we're at PenFed, as I said, we've always had a strong digital presence, but we are working very hard to continue to develop and evolve that presence so that we can provide more services and better services to our members through self-service, whether it's on their phones or on their laptops or on their tablets. So, and there's projects that are, in front, sort of behind the scenes, as well as things that are very obvious to our members. So we have actually a multi-year initiative going now that we kicked off in the middle of this year, where we are looking to transform our whole user interface that's on our, behind the login for members, so that we can upgrade it, make it much more mobile friendly. And so there's been kind of projects little by little moving in that direction this year. The bulk of those things will really start to pick up next year, so that as we continue on this digital transformation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So then I'm curious, I want to talk about partnering with fintechs. And I know that PenFed is obviously a pretty sizable organization. How are you partnering with fintechs today? And maybe if you maybe give us an example or two, that would be really helpful.
Oh, yeah. So we've got a whole bunch of different kinds of things we're doing with fintechs. One thing that we're doing is, like in the personal loan space, also in the student loan refi space, we work with fintechs who are, effectively marketing their specific product in the marketplace, and then they function as kind of providing us leads to our website. So that's one relationship. We have a whole bunch of other relationships that are more back-end oriented. It just is, for example, we're trying to create a smoother process for our members and for new members to join PenFed and apply for our products. And as you know, there's lots of processes that banks have to go through to verify identity. If you're applying for a lending product, oftentimes we need, particularly if it's a refinancing, we need to gather information about the loans that you currently have so that we know what your payoff balances are. And so there's a number of fintechs in that space who have solutions on identity verification or on helping us connect to the members' institutions to get that financial information we need. We're working with fintechs. There's new rules that are recently put in place by NACHA, the National Association of Clearinghouse for electronic payments, where you have to verify a user's third-party account before you can take money out of that account. We're working with a fintech right now so that we can enable our members to instantly verify those accounts, as opposed to traditionally what we've done is use a kind of a microservice approach. We've got a lot of different opportunities, and we're always looking for fintechs who have solutions that are state of the art so that we can implement them, as opposed to building our own technology.
Right. So what is your approach then? I mean, what's the philosophy around building your own versus taking on technology partnering with a fintech?
Well, to be honest, we're actually working at transforming. I talked a lot about our digital interfaces, but part of that is also transforming the way our entire tech stack is set up so that it can be much more API enabled. And so we have an old core system. I think we're, no plans to toss that out, but building kind of that middle layer between our core system and fintech solutions is a big part of our transformation. And what we're working on is to be in a place where we can easily connect with fintech technology so that we don't have to build it ourselves. Where PenFed is the second largest federal credit union in the country, but that's still, so while we're very large for a credit union, when you compare us to, say, the top 10 banks, we're relatively small. We don't have the technology resources and teams to build these solutions. We are very eager to partner with fintechs that are working on solutions to help us better serve our members and really see that as an opportunity that we want to continue to grow and foster.
Okay, that's really interesting. So then I want to can we just talk about the student loan refi business for a second, because it's been in the news a lot lately as far as student loans with people being allowed to postpone payments. I mean, how is that loan book going? I mean, do you feel like that? Firstly, maybe I'd love to hear about your experience with some of your borrowers who are struggling. What are you doing as far as forbearance there, and how has that product kind of performed for you guys this year?
Right. So the business is 100% focused on refinancing our members' student loans, not originating student loans while people are in school. So it's a relatively smaller asset class for PenFed, but we have provided those borrowers essentially the same support we're providing all of our borrowers, which is an opportunity, if they're struggling financially, to ask for a skip pay on their product and continue to ask for skip pays multiple times if needed, if they're struggling. Mm-hmm. In general, I would say because PenFed has been largely a fairly conservative organization when it comes to lending, we have weathered the storm pretty well on that front when we think about our whole portfolio. And, again, because we're really very focused on member service, it's a really core value of ours to work with our borrowers, particularly during something like the pandemic, who are struggling, to see if we can see them through this difficult period of time, and then they can start repaying their loan once they're back up on their feet.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So then, what about? I'm curious, because one thing I've always been curious about is that we've had many people on the show this year, and in just various sessions we've had at Lendit talking about fraud, and there's been an increase in fraud attempts this year as the fraudsters try to take advantage of everyone being online as well. I'm just wondering if a credit union is a little bit different to a regular bank, because you really are a membership organization. But has there been an increase in fraud attempts this year at PenFed?
I think we have seen an increase in fraud attempts across the institution, like the rest of the industry have. One of the things that I think we're all of us are feeling good about is over the last 3 to 4 years, as we've moved and prepared the organization and evolved our technology, we did add a number of solutions, third-party solutions, to help us manage those fraud attempts and be far more sophisticated about detecting them. So I think that we're feeling very good about the fact that we have put in some of those solutions prior to this pandemic. But I do think the whole industry has seen an increase in fraud attempts. And I think that, it's one of the challenges that all financial institutions face. What we found is we put a series of solutions in place, and the fraudsters are always kind of one step ahead. Once they realize their regular pattern can be detected, they're working hard to come up with new ways to infiltrate our system one way or another. But I think the good fortune is, while we've seen an increase in attempts, we've been effective at detecting those and have minimized the impact to our members and to PenFed as an institution.
Right. And then would you say, when you look at sort of the credit union space in general, I mean, it does definitely have, it's different to the traditional banking space in many ways. But what do you feel like is the challenge for the credit union space? Because obviously you're a bit different because you're you said the second largest credit union, federal credit union. So a lot of credit unions are small. What do you feel like is the biggest challenge for the credit union space right now?
Well, I think one challenge in the whole space is there are a lot of much smaller credit unions that were very branch-centric and
Right.
didn't have the technology that they really need to support their members in a more remote way. So I think that there have been a number of smaller credit unions that have been challenged by that, as their members are visiting branches less frequently, as they're trying, we ourselves have, depending on where the location is, all our branches are open, but some have reduced hours. Many are pushing as many services as possible, kind of through the drive-through, again, to make sure everybody stays safe. So I think that's really been a big challenge for the smaller credit unions. And then I think one of their challenges going forward is going to be just keeping up with consumer expectations, keeping up with their member expectations on the kind of digital experiences our members are continually setting a higher bar for us. And I'm sure that's happening across the credit union space.
Yeah, I think that's one of the stories that hasn't really been talked about enough this year is the consumer expectations. It feels like to me that they've changed, and not only, I think people are very much wanting a digital experience, and obviously PenFed has been able to provide that even before the pandemic. But it seems like now that that there's mobile that is really becoming bigger, and you've got a broader cross section, like people who. People that I know, friends of mine are explaining to their parents how to deposit a check with a mobile phone, and you've got a whole new segment of the population that suddenly has digital expectations as well. I mean, when you're designing digital products, are you trying, like, what sort of population are you trying to focus on, or how do you sort of? I guess what my real question is there's new people that have come on to digital this year. What are you doing specifically for those kinds of people?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think all demographics have become more digital this year when it comes to their financial services and banking in particular. And we ourselves are seeing higher usage of our digital platforms from our membership, and as I'm sure other institutions are as well. And so I think there's a couple of things is, as people get more comfortable using, we've always had mobile deposit, or we've had it for a very long time. We have the basics that consumers are looking for, but there's new experiences out there that members are also looking for or going to start looking for. And so we try to focus on what are those going to be? And how could we, which ones do we think our members will be most interested in, and how do we set ourselves up best so that we can support those experiences, as they come about. So a lot of what I do and my peers and my team does is try to become more sophisticated and educated about the tools out there that are evolving, what's happening in the tech space around financial services, so that we can do the groundwork that we need to do and be ready to implement those services when our members are starting to ask for them.
Right. That makes sense. So how do you go about educating yourself? I mean, because I imagine, obviously there's a huge, I mean, to know everything about what's going on today is virtually impossible. And there's just so much, so much happening. I see it, I try and keep up as much as I can, but it's a fire hose of new things that are being released and developed today. How do you try and stay up to date with what's needed for what could be useful for PenFed?
Right. Well, I think myself, my team, and my peers, we try to have a lot of different accounts at different places to see what our competitors are introducing to their users. That's one way. And of course, there's, we used to go to conferences where, and there's many excellent conferences in financial services where there's many fintechs as well as other innovative companies coming to the table talking about new services and capabilities they have. We already have relationships with a number of third-party providers, particularly on the technology front. They're always talking to us about what they're looking to introduce. And then, of course, there's a lot of, as you're well aware, there's a lot of press out there that is covering the innovation in the space. And we really work hard to stay on top of that as well. And I think we try to be pretty proactive about reaching out to organizations that are building new technology, and whether it's fintech firms or more established technology providers in the financial services space, where we try to take the initiative and be proactive about learning about their solutions, and then talking internally with our own technology team to talk about what are the challenges, what the hurdles might be if we wanted to implement some of those solutions. Right.
And how much do you pay attention to to sort of the digital challenger banks that are out there, Chime and SoFi and Moneyline, Dave, those sorts of companies? How much are you really looking at them as kind of inspiration?
I think quite a bit, to be honest. SoFi, as you're well aware, is a very, very significant participant in the student lending space. Yep. So we do spend a lot of time trying to understand what they're doing and the innovation they bring to the table. And Chime is an innovator in the banking space and has really made a number of activities when it comes to opening an account and getting started with your account really simple and easy for users. So we do look at those players in the space and see what they're doing and see what we can leverage and apply to PenFed to make PenFed, we want PenFed to be a great institution for our members. We want it to be user friendly. We want our members to be able to access state-of-the-art technology. So we consider that, a big part of what we do.
Right. Okay. So running out of time, but a couple of things I want to get to before we close. We haven't talked about payments at all yet, and I'd love to kind of get your perspective on what's new. What are you doing there that is new and interesting?
Yeah, so what we're doing now is we're doing a deep dive into sort of P2P, trying to understand the market there, whether bringing our members a solution like Zelle makes sense for PenFed, what role some of the other P2P solutions like Venmo is playing, and how active our members are in using those kind of solutions. So we're spending a good deal of time. I don't have an answer yet on what our strategy is going to be for, person-to-person payments. We're also trying to understand the landscape of the future so that we can make sure PenFed is really well positioned for our members in the future. The clearinghouse has come out with the RTP payment infrastructure. Fed is in the process of developing a real-time payment infrastructure as well, that they anticipate will come out in the next 2 years. And what we're trying to understand is what will it take for PenFed to be able to support those new technologies so that our members can be supported by them. And so we're spending a lot of time learning about them and understanding how they're evolving and getting a sense of when they'll start impacting the more retail, sort of the broader retail consumer population.
Right. Okay. So last question then. This is the first episode of 2021. So I want to ask you what are your goals for this year? What are you focused on?
Well, okay. I would say one goal on the payment space is setting our strategy in person-to-person payments and how we want to approach that. And beginning to execute on our chosen strategy. Number two is really pushing hard for this initiative that we have to re-platform a lot of our self-service activities into a new technology platform that'll be a lot more user-friendly. And, as the product owner, we spend a huge amount of time working with our technology teams and partners, helping to define what that user experience should be so that it really meets our members' expectations. And then I think the third area that's become a big priority for us is we actually are looking to invest in our value propositions in the checking space. We want to introduce at least one, if not more than one, new value propositions in checking that we think will be more attractive to our membership base and really be able to provide that checking service to our members and expand the number of members we have with checking products at PenFed.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds like an admirable slate of products, slate of achievements for 2021. So I wish you all the best, Thea. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Peter. I appreciate it.
Okay. See ya. It's really interesting to hear Thea talk about their approach to partnering with fintechs and how they're really open to doing that and really looking for fintechs who provide really the best in breed technology and user experiences. So I think sometimes credit unions, you don't hear them as much of a focus for many of these banking as a service, lending as a service type companies. But I was just looking on their website, and PenFed has $25 billion in assets, and that is a very sizable organization. And to have someone like that actively courting the fintech community, I think is it's a call to action, I think, for many of us here, and that we should be putting, I think, a little bit more effort into really working more with credit unions than we do. I know there's some fintech companies that are specifically working with credit unions, but I think there could be a lot more effort put in here. Anyway, on that note, I will sign off. I very much appreciate you listening, and I'll catch you next time. Bye. Today's episode was sponsored by Lendit Fintech USA, the world's largest fintech event dedicated to lending and digital banking. Lendit's flagship event is happening online this year on April 27 to 29, with the possibility of an exclusive VIP in-person component. The verdict is in on Lendit's 2020 event that was held online, with many people saying it was the best virtual event they had ever attended. Lendit is setting the bar even higher in 2021. So join the fintech community at Lendit Fintech USA, where you will meet the people who matter, learn from the experts, and get business done. Sign up today at lendit.com/USA.